The 162 UFO files. The secret the US government can no longer hide. For decades, humanity believed UFOs were nothing more than myths created by conspiracy theorists. People laughed at anyone who claimed they had seen strange objects in the sky. Television programs dismissed them as hallucinations, whether balloons, atmospheric anomalies, or simply products of human imagination. But then something happened that forced the entire world to stop and pay attention. Just a few days ago, the US Department of Defense unexpectedly declassified more than 162 UFO files that had remained locked away for decades. These were no longer internet rumors or campfire stories. These were official government documents carrying the authorization of the United States itself. Inside were hundreds of unresolved encounters, military videos, pilot testimonies, radar data, satellite imagery, and internal reports that had once been classified as top secret. What shocked the world most was not the existence of UFOs. It was the fact that the US government openly admitted they still do not know what these objects are. One of the most discussed cases took place in the fall of 2023 over US airspace. That night, emergency agencies received dozens of calls almost simultaneously. The callers did not know each other. They were scattered across different locations separated by miles, yet every witness described the exact same thing. A blinding white light suddenly appeared in the sky, so bright that many people had to shield their eyes. Then, in the center of that light, a massive object slowly emerged as if it had materialized out of nowhere. It looked nothing like any aircraft ever built on Earth. The object was oval-shaped, metallic bronze in color, with a surface that reflected light like heated metal. Witnesses estimated its length at nearly 200 feet, larger than a commercial Boeing airliner. But the truly terrifying part was not its size. It was completely silent. No engines, no wings, no propellers, no exhaust trails, no sound at all. It simply hovered motionless in the air. Then, in less than a second, the entire object vanished from the sky as though it had never existed. The FBI laboratory later reconstructed the object based on witness testimony. What alarmed investigators was that the descriptions matched almost perfectly. That alone prevented the incident from being dismissed as mass hallucination. One anonymous FBI investigator reportedly stated in an internal recording, "We checked every possibility. The US Air Force doesn't have technology like this. Russia doesn't. China doesn't. At least not anything we know about." But that was only the beginning. One of the most controversial videos in the declassified files was recorded over Greece in 2023 using military infrared cameras. At first, the footage appeared ordinary. A small white object moving at around 80 miles per hour. Then it performed a perfect 90-degree turn, without slowing down, without tilting, without showing any sign of inertia. It simply changed direction as if the laws of physics did not apply. Aerospace engineers later analyzed the movement data and reached a chilling conclusion. If biological beings were inside that craft, the forces generated during the maneuver would have crushed any known life form. A former F-18 pilot involved in the analysis reportedly said, "If that's human technology, then modern aviation has to be rewritten from scratch." But the most shocking files were not about Earth at all. They were about the Moon. In 1969, as Apollo 11 approached lunar orbit, astronaut Buzz Aldrin reported seeing a strange light outside the spacecraft window. At first, NASA explained it away as reflected light or cosmic rays affecting the astronaut's vision. However, in the newly released full report, Aldrin described it differently. A structured luminous object moving parallel to the spacecraft for several minutes. That description is completely different from visual disturbances caused by cosmic radiation. 3 months later, Apollo 12 reported mysterious lights launching from the lunar surface and traveling into deep space. Apollo 17 was even more disturbing. In original photographs taken in 1972, analysts identified 3 bright objects arranged in a perfect triangle near the lunar horizon. Not stars, not lens reflections, not film damage. An internal Department of Defense analysis stated, "These objects may represent actual physical entities present within the lunar orbital environment." The obvious question followed immediately. If those objects were real, what were they? And why did humanity suddenly stop returning to the moon for more than 50 years after Apollo 17? Many people claim the reason was budget limitations, but some former NASA employees believe something else happened. One engineer who worked at the Johnson Space Center later claimed that several Apollo recordings were sealed under extraordinary security measures during the 1970s. Certain technical staff members were allegedly required to sign lifetime confidentiality agreements. He said, "Something happened on the moon. I don't know exactly what it was, but they clearly didn't want the public to see it." And then came the case that has haunted public imagination for nearly 80 years. Roswell. In July 1947, a strange object crashed near Roswell, New Mexico. Initially, the U.S. military announced they had recovered a flying disc. Only hours later, the statement was withdrawn. Officials claimed it was merely a weather balloon. But in the newly declassified documents, many previously blacked-out sections have now become visible. One internal FBI memo describes 3 disc-shaped objects recovered. Each object contained 3 humanoid bodies approximately 3 feet tall, wearing metallic silver suits. No longer an internet rumor, no longer an urban legend, an actual document. A retired FBI employee later revealed that certain Roswell-related materials had once been sealed under security classifications even higher than Cold War nuclear weapons files. He reportedly said, "There were things in those files that kept people awake at night for decades." Then came the name that shook the UFO world, Bob Lazar. In 1989, Lazar appeared on American television claiming he had worked at a secret facility called S4 near Area 51. According to him, the US government was studying extraterrestrial spacecraft recovered decades earlier. He described propulsion systems powered by a mysterious substance called Element 115 capable of generating artificial gravity fields. At the time, scientists mocked him, because Element 115 did not officially exist. Years later, however, laboratories successfully synthesized Element 115 artificially. That caused many people to ask a disturbing question. What if Bob Lazar was telling the truth? One lesser-known story occurred during the winter of 1997 in Nevada. An electrical maintenance worker near the desert reportedly saw a gigantic black object hovering silently over the horizon at around 2 a.m. No lights, no sound, no radar signature, yet the ground beneath him vibrated as if something enormous and invisible was pressing against the earth itself. He later claimed that after the object disappeared, electrical systems across the surrounding area malfunctioned for nearly 15 minutes. His report was allegedly confiscated. No official explanation was ever provided. Another story came from a former U.S. Navy officer. In 2004, while the USS Nimitz carrier strike group operated in the Pacific Ocean, radar systems repeatedly detected objects descending from over 80,000 feet to sea level within seconds. No human aircraft could survive such acceleration. One pilot sent to intercept the object later described seeing a smooth white craft shaped like a giant tic-tac hovering above the ocean surface. As he approached, the object suddenly accelerated and vanished from radar. Less than a minute later, it reportedly reappeared nearly 60 miles away at a classified rendezvous point. Engineers calculated that the maneuver exceeded the capabilities of every known aerospace technology on Earth. To this day, the incident remains unexplained. The most frightening possibility is not that UFOs exist. It is the possibility that governments have known for a very long time. Throughout the declassified files, the phrase appearing most often was not hallucination or natural phenomenon. It was non-human intelligence. What does that mean? It means the US government is no longer ruling out the possibility that these objects are controlled by an intelligence that is not human. If that is true, human history would change forever. Religion would change. Science would change. Humanity's understanding of its place in the universe would change. And perhaps the most terrifying possibility of all is that they may have been here long before we ever noticed. Ancient civilizations across the world left behind strange carvings and mysterious sky figures. Objects resembling spacecraft appear in Egyptian, Mayan, and Sumerian artwork. For thousands of years, humanity called them gods. But what if they were not gods at all? What if the beings from the sky described by ancient civilizations were actually visitors from somewhere else? Perhaps the entire history we know today is only a tiny fragment of a far larger truth. And the 162 newly declassified files may be only the first door that has finally begun to open.